I'm very looking forward to chat with my friend Yuan very soon. Yuan is a data scientist with years of experience in management consulting and marketing. I hope we can all learn a little bit from him about how artificial intelligence is changing our society and our music industry as well.
We have known each other since Bard College. So I was there during my undergrad doing double degree in violin performance and also second degrees in economics. It has been a wonderful experience. And then, not only because I have always been a music lover, but also the fact that, I was able to study all the different kind of disciplines, math, economics, history, physics, etc. It's just wonderful. And after that, I decided to go for the business route. So went out to do a lot of marketing research and then got trained at Columbia Business School where I received my degree in marketing science. So that's where we really dive into a lot of the marketing specific things. For example, in this era of data-driven decision making, how does the field of marketing got changed? And it has been super interesting where I was given the opportunity to work with Fortune 500 companies after the school. So basically to help them build models. And the model would tell them, for example, my last client is a Fortune 10 company. They spend about over $1 billion every year on marketing. So we were helping them to say, how should you spend that money? How should that money be spent in such a way that will bring you, the most interaction with customers. So that's kind of our goal. And it has been super interesting. The whole field of marketing is essentially just, invigorated by the discipline of data, by statistics, and ultimately by all the discipline related to data science. So after that, I decided to kind of venture into the data science world. So today I am a data scientist at the BCG, so Boston Consulting Group. I'm within a group called Gamma. So we focus specifically on building different type of AI engines for all the different companies across industry to help them utilize AI to maximize their potential. So super exciting work, I have to say. It's just wonderful to work with, different kind of problems and really solve a lot of problems that the industry have. And sometimes, some of the projects directly contribute to, let's say, the environment and that kind of thing. So I thought all of them are super valuable and interesting. So yeah, so has been quite a journey for me. So yeah.
That sounds really, really meaningful. I do wonder, since you're expert on machine learning, I wonder if you can share a bit about your opinions on how artificial intelligence is changing our society.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So it has been, these couple of years has been really exciting from the point of view of machine learning and AI. I think everybody's at this point is very familiar with different kind of daily applications of AI. So, if you pull out your phone, take a picture, you can be very sure that within 1 or 2 seconds, there are programs that can tell you what's in that photo, right? So where people are actively talking about autonomous driving and other applications. It's just approaching so fast that it's just very exciting. And from my point of view, what we saw in our daily work is that people are very familiar with how this type of AI have transformed personal experience. Very often it's consumer-related experiences. But there's a much bigger potential within the industry side where if you think about analogy, I would say, think about, when electricity was just introduced, right? So JP Morgan got his home lighted up by, inventions by Edison, but that's home application. What really transformed the society is when electricity is adopted into factories to replace all the steam engines and other type of source of power. And that's when we start to have this huge boost in terms of productivity, and the efficiency of the whole society basically just skyrocketed. And that essentially enabled all the different kind of applications until today. Same thing for internet. And if we use that analogy, I would say AI is probably on the same magnitude as those, because we don't see that right now, because a lot of firms we are helping with, they're still on a fairly traditional way of doing business. And frankly, when some of them switch to kind of the AI-powered core, and then collaborated with human effort, the kind of the efficiency gain is exponential. And it's quite amazing to see how you can simplify so many different kind of processes to leverage, past information by using AI, but also integrate some of the human controls in the process, so that you're making sure that it's not just machine dictating our fate. But overall, I would say the net effect is so positive that I personally just have a lot of faith in how the whole society, especially the industry side, will be significantly changed in the coming years to be more AI driven. And as a result, we'll see many more efficiency gains in the society. Maybe less will be less visible compared to, let's say, the Go game between Google and our human masters. But the impact is going to be far beyond that. So I'm very excited to see the progress in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if you can also talk about, perhaps how people have certain concerns about this development.
Yeah, definitely. It has been a super interesting question. For example, myself, I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, the founder of CEO and also SpaceX. Sorry, the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla. So he's a true believer that AI is going to ruin humankind as altogether, because once you get to the stage where AI is conscious, then you cannot understand how it's making decision, right? And then you cannot intervene. So I would say that there people talk about AI because it's such a hot buzzword, but there are really different shades of AI that people should be aware of. What we are doing today, and I would say most of the projects, if not all of the projects I heard, is not building something that's conscious. So think about an AI that can dream or something. It's not what we're building. The AI engine we're building today is literally a machine that takes passive behavior and say, how can I mimic the decision of that decision, of the past decisions? So essentially, it's kind of mimicking what humans have been doing. So think about almost like a specialized tool, right? So think about it as so it's called generalized AI versus just regular one. So the ones we are building today, the ones that the companies are trying to adopt, are things that specific to are programs that address specific questions. For example, the one we built for a restaurant specifically helped them to figure out what's the expected customer flow by hour, so that they can say, for today around noon time, they expect to have 45 people walking to the door to have lunch with them. So then you can try to plan like how many hamburgers you should take out from the fridge, how many waitresses you have to have. So it's a very specific thing. And I would have absolutely zero worry that this one is gonna turn upside down and say, how should I mess around with humankind to just have fun. AI today AI is, I would say, like 10,000 miles from that. But I think the concern that is going to be very worrisome for a lot of people in twofold. One fold is that if it's really conscious in, let's say, 100 years, then yes, it's going to be a threat. For today, I think most of the challenge remains to be how do we work along with AI? Because as you know, a lot of jobs, especially white-collar jobs, are currently being replaced by AI. So obviously, there's a huge pushback from all walks of life to say, should we just replace all the human effort? And the answer is no. I think this is just my personal opinion that when you replace a lot of the jobs in the industry with AI driven programs, you still have to have a human layer to make sure everything is in check. And beyond that, the efficiency gain from AI engines will free up a lot of human capital, and people who are freed up from this kind of repetitive, tedious jobs can really pursue other kind of career or upskill themselves to do even more valuable things. And then I know the transition is going to be really tough.
Yeah.
And even I, right? So if I think of my job, which is really work with AI engine every day, there might be in the future some kind of automated way to do that. And then I will think about how should I upskill myself to make sure I can contribute to the society in other ways, right? So it's really a lot of worry of people who feel the threat from the AI replacement. But at the same time, I think if you take a more progressive view, I would say, people definitely want to achieve more and want to make a more, I would say, fuller life compared to doing, let's say, I don't know, tying a bolt every day 400 times. That's just boring, right? So I would say, that's kind of the most debated area right now.
Right.
But I think the history is always on the side of efficiency gains.
Yeah.
So I think it's detrimental that the education system, the social benefit system, social welfare, etc., all can catch up, so that people have this cushion between upskilling themselves for a more, I would say, creative oriented jobs. For example, music would be a very specific example, or try to figure out the best way they can work with machines to make sure that machines are regulated in certain ways, and it's doing what is best for the society rather than having any kind of a negative impact on that. And we have tons of examples before where we're trying to get that into place so that machine does not just repeat past decisions, which will actually put disadvantage in terms of for some minority groups, and we certainly don't want that. And essentially, you're talking about the ethnicity, if you will, and also the kind of equality from a decision from AI. So those are areas that's being actively talked about in the industry right now. So companies are trying to address that to say, we didn't build a program to say, we never observed any kind of a person from this specific village to enter this college, we'll assume that this village does not produce talents, that's worth it. That's just big no, right? So so there definitely will be a lot of roles, and there will be a lot of human interventions to make sure that we are really benefiting from the program rather than just taking a shortcut but leave others behind.
Right. So that takes a lot of regulations, especially during the transition period, I think.
Definitely. I think it will take a lot of regulations. And I think more than regulation is how people think about it. And it's really hard, right? So fundamentally, everybody is learning new knowledge every day. And then I think that's the fundamental pillar against any replacements, either by machine or by other people. So you definitely want to make sure your skills, doesn't matter what industry you are in or doesn't matter what you do, is unique, right? So when Econ 101, if you have a market filled with the same type of thing, then it's called commodity, and then you don't earn any money from that. But if you are if you are special, right? So let's say everybody is, let's say it's a violin churning out from certain factories, and it's like machine stamped on the wood, and you have a violin, compared to a Strad, which is really unique. Well, all of them are violin, but the stories, the sound, the values are completely different. And that's what we are trying to do, is that let's say I am a factory produced violin in the first place. I definitely want to get more trainings and more kind of workout, if you will, to become differentiated from the other factory violins.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next question I have relating to music industry. So what do you think would be a best way for artists nowadays to navigate on internet without losing artistic integrity?
Yeah, I think if we think about in this era where internet is so widespread, it's very easy to fall into the trap where broadcasting oneself is viewed as almost like a free advertisement. And I think people should be really careful when it comes to their personal brand, because music industry overall has a very heavy weight on how personal brand affect kind of one's value in the market, I would say. I would say that to me, it's more about how you utilize the internet as a way of marketing rather than just a way of broadcast. So if you think about, I'll borrow some examples from my work. So for example, for personalized, one thing that I think can be very interesting is that how do artists and artistic institutions communicate with their audiences, right? So in the industry of machine learning, what we usually do is that we want to be really careful with how you communicate with each of the customers. Well, in the music industry, could be each of your listeners on different issues, and you want to personalize different kind of communication touch point to make sure everybody is not getting blasted with emails or just, for example, I got mails from Carnegie almost every month, and then it's almost always the same, that here is a list of programs, and here is a envelope where you can send us money. So I feel like it's almost like a blanket type of, it's kind of blanket advertising, right? But what should be done, I hope in the future, is that the communication from person to person should be completely different. Think about someone who just joined the music, let's say, classical music lover group, compared to someone who has been enjoying the music for, let's say, the past 10 years and is a big fan. The communication message should be completely different from one to another, right? And you definitely want to try to bring more storytelling to the first group of people. But for the later side of people, so people who has been having a long tenure with the institution or a personal artist, you definitely want to make sure that, what you communicate to them is more likely to be the deep, profound meaning of certain pieces, or let's say, because assuming they already know the basics, right? So Beethoven, they can distinguish Haydn from Bach, et cetera, et cetera. So the level of content being shared to different people should be different. And then this is the whole goal is to ensure engagement, because if we borrow the marketing terms, what people care about most about is called lifetime value, customer lifetime value, which, if you take it in a very shallow way, is that how much money you're going to charge a person for all the concerts he attends from the moment he fell in love with classical music all the way to he decided to depart from the classical music world. And that's what you are trying to drive for. And to maintain this engagement, people want kind of different information at different stages. For example, if I come in as someone who does not know even like the chord's name or something, like I want to hear more about stories such as, why is Mozart a genius, right? What's about his music that make his career so successful compared to others? And even let's say gossip, right? So what happened between Schumann's wife and I forgot it, Brahms? Right. So these are the information that will get people interested, but not necessarily very specific to music. But once people are clamoring to kind of how the music was generated, then it's more about deeper analysis to keep them engaged. For example, assuming they hear certain pieces for so many times, and it's more about why, let's say, this chord is used, and what's the reference to other pieces that's in this music, how, let's say, one piece is actually inverted from the Paganini pieces, right? So these are the kind of different level of stories that you can think about, almost like different level of marketing you can put to different people. So in marketing terms, we have something called upper funnel and lower funnel. Upper funnel referring to, let's say, TV, newspapers, where you look at the ads, say, oh, that's a new Chevy Bolt, right? Or Malibu. But you cannot do anything with that. It's when you search online or go to the website or go to the dealership when you actually buy the car. So the first part where you are creating awareness is called upper funnel. And then the conversion and the music world can be buying a ticket to a concert. That's the lower funnel, right? So all marketing is trying to do is to maximize the foot traffic coming from upper funnel, meaning that you give people enough exposure to get them interested. And then when they are interested, start to search for you, start to come to certain small concerts, then that's opportunity for you to say, I think you are definitely interested, and let me show you more of the interesting stuff from classical music so that you can see how the high value you will get by becoming a lover. So I think that's, from a marketing perspective, that's how I think the music world can start to recruit more people into the whole family, but also it's just tremendously important to keep them as well. So there are a lot of algorithms and data-driven methods that I'm aware of that can help different institutions to really not only acquire new lovers, but also trying to keep them. And then I'd be happy to talk through some examples if that's something you're interested in.
Thank you. So I have to say, it's probably easier for larger organizations such as Carnegie Hall or a symphony, let's say, or some huge art foundations. They are the ones who are able to, let's say, hire people who might be able to attract new audience, let's say. But what's your advice for individual artists, people who also have equal value, artistic value, but they don't necessarily have enough financial support from big organizations, but they still also need to be able to contribute and be heard?
Great question. So I would say that there are a couple things I can think about just based on what I observed. I cannot say it's definitely the approach, but I think could be helpful. One is that just to make sure that when you're using online channels such as Facebook or other kind of means to share the great music content someone has, it's detrimental to keep the quality high. So if you think about what are you recording from, right? So certainly cannot be iPhone, certainly cannot be just a computer recording. I think because it's all related to brand name, right? So people, the one thing that's really important for classical music is the sound quality. Otherwise, people won't go to concert. I can just do it on my computer. And it's the same for personal music sharing. And I saw a lot of people who share music videos online where it's just almost like a practicing session, right? Um, and to me, that doesn't reflect very positively on personal brand. I think it's much more, I think it's much safer if it's a carefully planned audio or video where it's recorded at least using some kind of professional devices, but adjusted in terms of tonality and also the, let's say, kind of the effects, right? And I think that's just one way to safeguard the personal image and the personal brand. The other thing is that from a marketing perspective, you don't want to make the video almost like a free-for-all, right? So it has to be certain type of tiers, if you will. Think about the marketing, right? So back to what we talk about upper funnel, lower funnel. Upper funnel would be where you attract attention. Lower funnel is where you convert the customers. So I think there has to be almost like a tiered offering where there's one set of content to say, look at all these great performances, let's say from the past, right? So I'm pretty sure a lot of musicians have recordings and other kind of things to show off from the past. But then have more curated list of almost, let's call it the high quality whatever, to be almost like the core offering to people who are really interested. So I think, during this pandemic time, it has been tremendously difficult for a lot of musicians, but I don't think one should discount their personal brand to get through this period. I think it's important to keep audience engaged through, let's say, carefully recorded videos or audios. And even one thing that I think will be interesting is to attach storytelling to certain pieces so that people are not just listening to music, but also they are getting quote unquote educated about what's the music about and why am I performing this piece. And I think that could be very interesting because people are enjoying the music while having a context, right? So these can be really interesting, and that can be done without damaging personal brand. And I think that can even increase your personal brand and bring a lot of fans to really understand, to say, oh, I just heard about classical music before, but I never understand why it's so, deeply appreciated. But now with the context behind the piece, right? So let's say, Bach wrote his partita and then his chaconne piece after his wife passed away. These are the stories that can really transform an audience experience with a piece. And I think that can be leveraged in this era to, first of all, safeguard the quality of the offering. So it's not just music, but also kind of context. Second, it can differentiate one's music from just, I guess, practice recordings, which I personally view is a pretty dangerous thing for a personal brand.
Thank you. But that's based on the assumption that we will go back to live concert performances. So
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, I certainly hope so too. But, let's say in a slightly pessimistic point of view, if this is a time for people to sort of, move concert hall setting to digitalized setting online, that would be a complete different story, right? Because the marketing tool online would be to promote your concert online. Yeah,
totally. So I think that's that's a challenge. Maybe I don't have a great solution to, but I think I'd be happy to offer uh, some things I observed in the past that might be helpful. So
Mm-hmm.
one of my friend is working at Adobe. So he has been working on sound related projects all along since his PhD time. And I think a lot of the interesting application he got was, for example, a way to shorten the time lag when you are doing a video music sharing, right? So if you think about a band with, let's say, 4 people in 4 different locations, like what we saw just a couple of weeks back from the stay home concert from all these big stars. Uh, and there are technologies, especially from AI standpoint, that can help people to put together a concert or even an ensemble in an easier way.
Yeah.
And in terms of sharing, if we're talking about outside concert halls, right? You can think about alternative ways to host concert. Online is certainly being one, but the quality will be something I think will be important to control in terms of quality control. But then, what about open space concerts, right? So one of my favorite concert would be the one in Berlin, where people are I think it's a summer festival, right? Where people like are lying on lawn outside Berlin, where Berliner was giving a performance like on the stage. I mean, there are alternative ways to host concert. Probably going to be outdoors in the coming months, and given the nice weather right now, I mean at least around New York, I think that's something that a musician can take advantage of. But when it's needed to have a concert indoor, I still think the quality is super important because that's the value of live concert, right? So you're in live concert because it's because of the atmosphere, but also the fact that you're expecting to have better qualities or more of a live feel. So that get completely taken away if it's not in the same room.
Right.
But it's still, I think it's doable to have um, a good check in terms of the sound quality.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about specific teams or people who have this expertise, but I believe there should be people who are familiar with this type of technology, right? But if you think about the offering, the value provided from a live concert, unfortunately, a lot of that is taken away compared to me watching a video online. But I think we can kind of get some of that back through good editing, good storytelling, and especially good sound quality control.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's
Just
very
my 2 cents.
insightful, and I'm really glad that I get to actually, get your perspective on this situation. And I hope we can all actually get through it. But your advice is actually very helpful. Thank you
I
very
just
much.
hope it's interesting to hear just a different perspective. And I love the music industry. Have always been a big fan of classical music. So I definitely hope the best for the industry overall. And I can't wait for next time I can sit back to the concert hall and then listen to you guys performing.
Thank you.